So now we took our reality mesh, extracted bare ground from it, and created a scalable terrain model, which is also in a form of a mesh. And we could export that out to a terrain model, which could be viewed by all MicroStation applications. We could also bring that into one of our civil platforms, so the Open Roads technology could take advantage of that as well. But in case you're working with just Context Capture Editor or Descartes and you want to export this out to maybe somebody using a third-party application that they would like to use this mesh, what we can do is we have the option here. We see under the 3SM that we do have the export resolution, so we could export this mesh out. But this mesh does contain all the trees and the cars and the buildings. Now the scalable terrain mesh that we have here is down to bare earth. So one thing we can do, we could take this and if we say File, Export Scalable Terrain Model to Terrain Model, that now becomes a MicroStation element. So we simplified this. Now we see our under Scalable Terrain Model. We no longer have that connected, but we do have a mesh here. So I'm going to turn off my reality mesh. So now we see when we select these contours, they're actually terrain and they're listed as minor contours. If we go to our properties here, we can see that we have a lot of settings in here under the terrain, what we're seeing here. And I'm going to come down and say that I want to see the triangles, turn them on. We turn the triangles on so we're able to see the triangles. Now, this still is considered a terrain. So MicroStation does know that these are contours and these are triangles within my terrain. We want to kind of simplify this a little more. So we can use the drop tool, which is under our home tab here. When I pick drop, you're going to notice we have the option for application elements. This is a civil application. So this element here, when I pick that, it now broke it into 3 separate meshes. And we see here it now is just a mesh. Now that we have these as meshes, I can hold down my control button and select multiples of them. So we selected all these meshes. I can go under retouch here and we see here we have decimate mesh. Now I'm going to knock this to 30% and you will notice we'll zoom in on some of this. Since I already selected these 3 meshes, the bottom left is asking me to accept what I chose. If I didn't select any at all from the beginning, I would have to select the one at this point. But we will just decimate this mesh at a 30%. And I left click and accept it. And we now see that this mesh is more decimated than it was before. And I could keep going through if need be and decimate this. As I pick it each time, you notice that these triangles are getting further apart, depending on the percentage that I decimate this. So we can see there the middle group, the middle mesh there is actually decimated a lot more than the outer ones. Now at this point we could export this out. If I needed to stitch these together, I can select multiple meshes here and we can do a stitch into mesh. And I'm going to accept that. So now we have this as one mesh again. And I can go under my file export and I can look under 3D model file types and we see here we have OBJ. When I choose this, it's asking me to convert this to an OBJ. I would just export it and give it my file name that I want to, and this OBJ now could be used as a mesh in other environments. I hope that helps show how we can decimate a mesh that came from Descartes or Context Capture Editor so that we could export into just a mesh object, which then could be viewed by third-party applications. Thank you.